Hey everybody, this is JDGaming, and today I wanted to do a very special video for you guys on the series How to Get Better at Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I just put my cards in new Ultra Pro glossy non-pro matte sleeves, just the way I like it, personal preference. But essentially, what you can see here is these new sleeves are really glossy, and so they're pretty slippery when you first sleeve them, to the point that cards will literally go flying if I start shuffling until I break them in. So we're going to do that with this video. First, why care about shuffling? Well, if you've ever played Pot of Avarice back in the day, you might know what I'm talking about. Pot of Avarice Red, select 5 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them into your deck, draw 2 cards. You're going to have a grave full of spells and traps, in your deck a cluster of probably 5 monsters if you don't shuffle enough, and then later, when you put all your cards together, that graveyard of spells and traps is probably going to stay in its own cluster as well, and all of a sudden now you have 2 big clots going through your deck. You're going to end up with problems if you draw a hand like this, where you have multiples or no monsters or whatever. For certain decks, clumping can become even more of an issue, you know. Maybe you're playing cards like Card D and Pot of Duality that say only once per turn. Well, you definitely don't want to see those in multiples. Or maybe you played a bunch of hand traps all at once and you don't want to see them together for a particular matchup. Whatever the case, a cluster is bad by nature because if you remember the probability video that we did, natural probabilities do exist for cards. So if you look at this, in a 6-card opening hand, so if you're going second, then you should draw, in a long-term scenario over many games, 1 of your cards at least when you're playing a playset 39% of the time. So that means 4 out of every 10 games, I should expect to see at least 1 Serene Psychic Witch since I play an entire playset. But imagine, if I were to shuffle the deck like this, you know, just throw her in the deck and start shuffling, well, this is kind of like just 1 copy of her now because this whole stack is moving together all at once. And we don't want that because that's not a natural probability. We are playing 3 to maximize drawing her, and we're not going to draw her that much because of the clump. So that's hopefully one really useful illustration of why you want to break up clumps. There are plenty of other reasons, as I said, unique to each deck of why you would want to break up clusters, but essentially, they're inherently bad. The second reason is, some people have asked me, like I know I have a friend who doesn't feel comfortable randomizing his own deck just because it is something that's a little more, you know, dexterous at times. It can be intimidating when you see some shuffling people going, you know, like, hiya, all casino style, whatever. But I'm here to show you methods that you can use that aren't going to require a ton of practice or anything. You know, in a few minutes' time, you'll probably be able to master these, and hopefully there'll be ways that you can implement in your games to randomize your deck better so you don't experience these clumping problems, and you can, you know, move on with your life from there and not have to worry about it again. This is a topic where if you've thought about it before once at least and you know, have turned it into a habit, you probably don't have to think about it again, but if you've never thought about it before, it might just be the thing that you need to get better at this game. So, the first thing that we need to know is, did this shuffle work? So, as a reference point, I'm going to profile this deck real fast. I organize my cards based on alphabetical order by card type. So, monsters alphabetical, A to Z, and then spells, A to Z, traps, A to Z, etc. And basically, that way I know that I have all the cards that I wanted to put into the deck when I build it and all that. So you may have another way of organizing it, but you can see here, doubles galore. And I'm basically going to return it to this position before I move on to any new shuffling so that you can see the effects that each shuffling has. So here we have CAs, COs, CRs. I'm not going to go through each individual card basically because if you want to see that deck profile, it's in the description. That's for another time. If you've already seen it, then hoorah for you. But basically E's, G's, M's, N, PSI, PSY for Psychic, Psychic C, Psychic J, R, S's, T's, and then monsters are done, spells alphabetically B, C, E's, F's, M, pot of die, DI, pot of DU, do, R, and S, so everything is indeed in alphabetical order. So now that we have our reference point, we're going to go ahead and apply the first shuffle. So the best way by far to break up clumps guaranteed is the pile shuffle. So the way you do this, you may have seen it before. I have a 40 card deck, going to divide it into a nice number, let's say 5, and get 5 stacks of 8. We're going to lay out on this mat. There are obviously zones, so you can easily see how, okay, I'm going to go through and place cards on top of each of these piles. And this basically, as we will see in a bit, prevents any clumps from forming, and starts our randomization process. Now, the thing to keep in mind with this is it takes kind of a while, as you can see, and another thing is you don't want to snake this way, because basically what happens is if you go this way and then place another card here and then go on, you're going to end up with 2 cards in a row here, and then same thing at the end. So if you're going to snake, what I would say is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which would break your number slightly because you're not doing by 5s anymore. Or just go ahead and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as I've been doing. At this point, you can just go grab random stacks, place them in any order on top of each other. And now you've guaranteed that you have no 2 cards that were originally together anymore, which is good in the sense that our deck looks a little more playable, you know. You could do something with a hand like this, drawing into something like this. Thing is, though, technically, that's not randomizing your deck because you know for a fact cards will not end up in a particular configuration. In this case, the cards that were next to each other will never end up next to each other. And technically speaking, if you know that's going to happen, it's not fair, and that's why you do follow up with another type of shuffle. So that pile shuffle works really well, but as you saw, it took like a minute, and when you have 3 minutes to side and shuffle and all that, not a lot of time, right? Well, I've reorganized the deck as it originally was, so now we're going to try a variant of this that I have adapted that I feel is a lot faster. So basically, same principle, I'm going to divide into 5 stacks, but I'm going to use a rule of 2 and 3. 2 in my left, 3 in my right. So I'm going to do it first, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. So, as you can see, general idea is it's possible to supply multiple stacks of cards at the same time, or at least very quickly streamline everything. So now I'm putting, 5 cards together, and now if I combine the stacks at this point, stacks aren't the prettiest, especially with new sleeves, so everything's sliding around, as I've said, but you know, in less than half the time, we basically have, as you can see here, a randomized deck, no 2 cards in the original position. Slightly different order just because I pile shuffled differently than before, but as you can see here, no duplicates are next to each other anymore. So that definitely does work. How does it work in a step-by-step process? Well, that basically comes down to, I said 2 and 3 is my rule because I go, take from the top 2 cards in my left hand, drop, 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 and repeat. Take 2, drop, drop, drop. I feel comfortable like this because I have my right hand is more dominant, so, you know, I use this pattern, you know, start off slow. First time I did, I literally went drop, 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 and over time, as you can see, the deck, it's a little harder to compare this time, but basically still randomized, you know. Whole point is, though, now you can go and pile shuffle a few times relatively quickly. The whole deck is done in just a matter of seconds, maybe like 10 seconds, I don't know, I'm not looking at the timer, but basically when you don't fail and the sleeves aren't quite so new and extra slippery, that's all it takes. Deck is done and ready to further randomize. So this is a good way to try this. I encourage you to, you know, practice the motions slowly. Again, I do 2 and 3. You can break it in any way you want. Maybe you do 6 piles and you go 3 and 3. Whatever suits your tastes. Just try going for it. Just put a certain number of cards in your left hand, place some other cards in your right hand, and basically go make piles in that way. Alright, we're back and ready to feature another shuffle. So this one I see is pretty common and popular with people. What people like to do is take just a chunk of cards, so maybe cut the deck in half, and basically, as you can see from the side, kind of wedge them together so that some cards go in between others, and hopefully the idea is that you break clusters. As you can see here, from one time, it starts breaking up clusters, because every time you introduce a card, you end up splitting some others. But as you can see, clusters are still happening, and even cards like, you can see Book of Moon, then Creature Swap, so B, then C, then E, then E, then E, you know. You have cards in order. So, okay, well, that's true with one go. What if we do it another go? So, I don't know, just randomly wedge them in again. After 2 rounds, we're still seeing some cards in the same order, as you can see. The witches are broken up, but it's still witch, witch, witch. You can see gores and gores, MST, MST, MST. So patterns are still there, right? But over time, you can eventually break this apart. So the whole point of this is that any shuffling technique will work. Like this does work. As you can see though, it's taking quite a lot of time, and it takes a lot longer on average than pile shuffle method that I showed you so far. So yeah, you can keep doing this, and it's definitely a comfortable way for a lot of people. I personally don't use this method a lot, so you can see I'm having a little trouble, but even so, you know, it's still getting there. And you know, I personally learned how to do this in maybe like 5 minutes of trying. Again, it gets a lot better as you use it more, as you will see with my next shuffle, my main shuffle. But yeah, message here, don't forget, it eventually will work, so don't give up. The thing with shuffling is the more efficient method you have, the quicker it is to randomize your deck, less time you have to spend doing it, and the less effort it takes for you personally. So that factor in and of itself makes it different for everybody. So now you can see here, after we randomized, cards are looking pretty random. Like if we draw a 5-card hand here, or 6-card hand, because I accidentally grabbed 6, that looks random, right? And if we reveal like the top 3, let's say you're playing Pot of Duality, it is random. So it takes a while, but you can eventually get there. And now I'm going to show you the third type of shuffle, my very favorite. We're back to neutral and ready to go. This shuffle is called the overhand shuffle, or you may think of it as the Yugi shuffle. So this is the shuffle that they use on the show. Essentially what I do is I take my hand in kind of this type of shape, as if, I guess, I was shaking someone's hand, but you turn your hand, right? Place your deck in your palm. But the way I do it is, you know, you could just slap it there and do this, but then you have kind of this awkward grip that's not really able to move a lot without dropping your cards, because, you know, your thumb's beyond, so now it's unable to do anything. Your other fingers are kind of just locked there into a death grip. We can't do anything with that. So what I do is essentially do that, but hold it so that you have a little pocket here, almost like enough for like a mouse or something in here, or your other hand, if you will. So now that I'm holding it so that the tips of my fingers are showing on top, you can now take the middle, drop, place the middle on top, and then you can see here, we didn't break up any of the shuffles, any of the clumps rather, but now we have multiple cuts. It's almost as if we went and said, okay, break this into 3 piles, cut the middle to the top, and put back on top. That's basically what we did. Why do we do this when we don't recommend something like cutting the deck in terms of randomization? Well, it's because repeated motions add up really quickly, and all of a sudden you're able to randomize your deck far more quickly than you would by mere cutting. Like, let's give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, time. So now if we look through here, again, not perfect. There's a cluster, there's another cluster, but for the most part, a lot of the cards are fairly randomized. Like here's a pair from a set of 3, here's a pair here, here's a pair. So occasionally you do see pairs, but for the most part, it is starting to get randomized after just a few quick minutes of shuffling. The way you do this faster and faster is essentially this. First, you take this from your neutral position, right? From your basic position. You take out the middle section using your right hand. So as you can see here, I'm only really using my middle finger supporting with the ring on this side. Pinky kind of just sits there for balance. Thumb grabs on this side, so thumb and middle finger oppose each other. Other fingers down here for balance. First finger on top to hold your cards. Drop. But now you can do this again. Instead of plopping this top stack on top, simply allow a little bit of a space. See these 2 fingers? Yeah, they come in handy here. Leave a little space. So now when you grab here, you can do that again, and just with a quick release of your first finger, pull out another thin slice. Drop on top. Again, your fingers serve as a shield here. Drop, shield, drop, shield, drop, until you end up with a tiny stack, and then you put it back on top. Repeat that motion again and again, and eventually, after, you know, maybe a minute or so, you've cut the deck into so many thin slices of variable size that you're basically taking your deck and going casino style, except it's all contained in this swift motion here, very controlled, very smooth, and easily able to get all your cards randomized. Now, if you see here, let's say we put something limited at the bottom. So we have something like Soul Charge at the very bottom. I can do this forever, Soul Charge. I can really do this forever, Soul Charge. I can do this forever, and none of this will actually change. Soul charge. Well, of course, it's because I never took cards out from the bottom. So two ways you can fix this is one, just grab the bottom chunk and throw it on top, and all of a sudden it's introduced into the shuffling mix. Or what I do is I basically go shuffle here, and when I have a tiny stack, I kind of use my thumb as a way, so basically thumb moves down. Push up with the thumb, making a little hole here, fit it in, and basically as I feel the cards coming to my fingers, I move my fingers slightly out of the way in order to allow movement into that area. So kind of like that. It's hard to describe, it's more of something that you'll have to try on your own, but general motion is thumb moves down, creates a hole, place down, and then move fingers as necessary, kind of do like that type of motion in order to recollect your cards after they've been allowed to settle into their spot. And after just a couple minutes of this shuffling, you could see here, if we draw an opening hand, we have still 2 commanders, but that's still a pretty randomized hand. Let's say 6th card, and then reveal 3 more for like Pot of Duality or something. It's getting fairly well shuffled. And that's another key point I'd like to bring up. I did say that the primary shuffle I like to do is the pile shuffle, and the main reason for that is basically with that, you have a quick way to break up all the clumps, and then you do this shuffle, basically guaranteed to have a randomized deck every single time. And now we've gone through all our different shuffles, it's time to put it all together. So, again, back where everything is organized, here is how I typically do a shuffle. So, you basically begin off with your pile shuffle. Just put 5 cards down, essentially at a time. And again, it gets a lot easier as you get used to it. No need to worry too much about the piles themselves. As long as they're not running together, it'll work. And if you feel that your piles are going to get messy enough to run into each other, you basically have to just put them further apart. Like right now I'm restraining myself to the screen, so it's a little more difficult, but okay, so we have this. Now you follow up with your preferred style of shuffle. So I like doing this, the overhand shuffle. And some of you might like to do this type of shuffle, the basic, squeeze things together. And now I'm watching a timer right now. We are at 55 seconds. We're basically going to just do 1 minute of shuffling, and then I'm going to go ahead and stop. So that's 1 minute of shuffling. I'm going to throw this away just because I accidentally saw what it was. It was a crane, but let's see how randomized we got. So there's a hand of 5, 6, reveal 3, as if we're playing Duality. Looks fairly random. Next few cards, we're going to do it again. 5 card hand, 6, reveal 3. So, not going to say that this is the best hand that I would like to play with this deck. Really, that's more of something on my part in terms of deck building, but hopefully this shows you that the cards are definitely randomized here, as you can see. And if we go through here, yeah, no clumps or anything. Occasional clumps are expected, but again, the probability of drawing a clump of 2 when you have, or 2 or more, when you have a set of 3 like the witches, is a mere 5.4% to draw 2 out of 3. So you could see how that's not very common. So we're not expecting that out of this random test hand, but it might happen. Like see here, it did happen, but again, pretty rare. Reveal 3 more. So yeah, there's that. Everything's looking random, and then to finish off, yep. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching, and if you like these videos, be sure to do so you help out my channel. It allows me to give you guys great content, so helps us both in a win-win scenario. And also, if you'd like to see more such videos that will help you improve your game, go to the description box down below where you can see my link to the playlist of all the videos that I've basically made so far. Basically covers various aspects, as you can see. Who thought of shuffling as a way to improve your game? Well, I apparently did, and I decided to make a video about it. So all that and more, you can find probabilities, you can find organizing your collection, soon to come is knowing your deck in and out, literally. And so yeah, that's just an idea of what's in store for you if you click on that link, so I encourage you to check it out. Anyway, this is JDGaming, and as usual, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time.